Hi, you with Scott. It's ASMR time. It's midnight. It's always midnight. I recently had the chance to catch up with my friend Alex Caithness. Alex is the guitarist and singer in band LongFallBoots. Hey! Thanks, Navi. And he's done a degree in music and knows a lot more about sound production and recording than I do. So I thought I'd ask him a few questions about that, and then we recorded some ASMR pieces in the studio using his distortion pedals and some of the things in the studio. I found the interview in the small studio space quite an ASMR friendly experience too, so I hope you enjoy that. And just one point I thought I'd mention, which is this has all been recorded by me with my binaural dummy head rig and not with Alex's wonderful studio technical equipment. I'm sure that his microphones and studio kit would have sounded much better maybe, but I just went with what I know and just used my binaural recording head. And the good thing about that, of course, is that you've got binaural sound in full for the entire recording, including the interview. I asked him a few questions about recording quiet sound for all the ASMR artists out there. I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs in the background, snuffling away on the sofa. You might want to do that too. Sit back, relax, and enjoy some ASMR. Be good, my little Pukkos.
Hi, you with Alex. It's ASMR time. It's midnight. It's always midnight. I'm Alex and we're here at the Needle Factory Studios. We're going to be talking about pedals and some acoustic treatment, and we're going to be making some ASMR triggers. So an effects pedal takes a signal, does something to that signal, which can be a bunch of different things. It could be distorting a signal, it could be replicating the signal in different ways, moulding it in different ways, and then it pushes that signal, now modified, out the other end. And then you can chain different pedals together to mould the sound in different ways. It's good fun. It would be nice to say that the fact that we had stuck the pedals on the wall was a well thought out, decorative, possibly even acoustic treatment for the room, and it probably does have some beneficial acoustic treatment to the room, but genuinely the reason that they are on the wall is because we owned so many that we ran out of storage space. One of the other benefits of having the pedals up on the wall is that when we come in and do some recording or some mixing or record one of our pedal demos, all of the pedals are all up on the wall, and it is nice to go up and just hit a couple of the switches. It's nice to be able to hit the switches sometimes without a terrible loud noise coming out the other end, but on the other hand, I quite like it when they're plugged into an amp and big horrible noises come out the other end as well. In this room, the main type of acoustic treatment that we have is to deaden the room. So we have some lovely purple foam on the walls. This actually absorbs sound, so that rather than the sound bouncing back off the walls, it goes into the foam and disappears, which allows you to be hearing more of what is coming out of the speakers rather than what the room is contributing to the sound when you're mixing. On the other hand, in the live room where we did the bulk of the recording, the main type of treatment are reflectors and diffusers, and that creates reflections in the room, but rather than straight reflections off flat walls, which sounds boring, instead what we get is more randomised, more spread reflections, which stops sounds from building up and becoming unpleasant in the room. Allows you to put a bit more high frequency back into the room without things getting shrill. One of the things that we used today was a guitar amp. This basically takes a small signal and then makes it much bigger, usually you would have a guitar plugged into it. Today, no guitar, just the end of a cable, and then we could adjust the balance of the sound, add reverb, take reverb away.
Sorry to interrupt. What's reverb?
Okay. Reverb is like without reverb, everything would sound very, very strange. Everything would be very, very direct. The reverb is the sound that a room, whether it's a small space or a big space, so whether it's a tiny little closet, which has a very, very short reverb, whether it's like a massive concert hall that adds a very, very long trail of reverb, combination of echoes and shorter reflections that gives a room its character, and then when you play inside that room, the character is imparted to whatever's happening inside that room. In the case of the amp, we weren't getting the reverb from the room as such, we were getting it from a number of springs which were resonating inside the amplifier.
Tell me about the springs, how does that work? Yeah, be as technical as you want, honestly.
Okay,
really technical.
With the spring reverb, the original signal is essentially coupled to a speaker which vibrates the spring at one end. Those vibrations then travel down the spring, ricocheting backwards and forwards, and at the other end you have what is essentially a microphone, more like a guitar pickup, but for all intents and purposes a microphone, something that is picking up the vibration at the other end. And the way that those vibrations interact with each other as they go back and forth down the spring, that's what then becomes the reverb with a spring reverb. You might hear that there's a certain twangy quality to it. You can hear individual short echoes, and then other times it's like a halo around the sound where you've got longer notes and the springs have time to build up their movement. Sound is what we experience from vibrations and changes of pressure in the air at certain frequencies. To say that there are sound waves is a slightly strange thing to say. There are changes in pressure in the air, and those changes in pressure vibrate our eardrums, which then get converted through a mechanical, chemical, neurological process into sound. There is no sound until you hear it. However, what there is changes in air pressure caused by other things, our voices, impulses, whatever it happens to be. And those waves are made up of a combination of sine waves, very pure waves. And it's the combination of those sine waves which then create what we perceive to be different sounds, different tones. Everything is built up from sine waves, a very pure waveform. Sine waves at different frequencies built up at different amplitudes create different, what we then perceive as different sounds. All the different stuff that we have on the walls will absorb different wavelengths of sine waves at different amounts. So whereas the thinner foam that we have on the ceiling that will absorb primarily shorter waves, which tend to make up what we perceive as being more trebly or higher pitched sounds. As we get to deeper foam that we have on the side of the walls here, particularly because it's next to our speakers, that takes up the high waves as well, but also going down into the longer wavelengths as well. The reflectors again reflect different parts of the spectrum. The wooden board that we were using is called a quadratic residue diffuser. I believe it was originally designed by someone at the BBC actually back in the 50s, 60s. The interesting thing about it is that the layout of the different sized blocks is actually very particularly calculated. It's designed to pseudo-randomly diffuse different frequencies within a particular bandwidth. So if you have particular build-ups of frequencies in a room, you can use particularly this type of diffuser to stop the build-up of those frequencies and put them back into the room in a useful way. Some studios, larger studios, have them all the way across their ceilings and it looks amazing. We've just got this little one on the wall, but despite the fact it's only a little thing, it actually makes a real positive contribution to the sound of the room, which otherwise can be a bit boxy. The mouse is a clone of a pedal called the Pukkos Rat, which is a distortion pedal that came about in either the late 70s or the early 80s. It is characterised by its sort of classic rocking fuzzy distortion tones. Probably one of the most famous examples of the Rat on a recording would be the bass guitar sound on the Blur song, Song 2, which is a great sound, although maybe not very relaxing. We didn't plug any of the pedals in today because it's maybe not as relaxing as it might be, but if you're interested in hearing what the pedals actually do sound like, many of the pedals that are up on the wall we actually have reviewed on our YouTube channel, which you can find in the description, but also here. Listen! If you're interested, you can go check them out. Okay, so 3 tips when it comes to recording quiet sounds. The first is to do with the microphones. When you're looking at microphone specifications, there's a lot of stuff there in the specifications which is meaningless or possibly misleading a lot of the time, but one of the main things you should look out for is something called self-noise. You want to find a microphone with a very low self-noise, which means that the microphone itself isn't contributing much background noise to the recording.
How ironic.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we'll get to tip 2. Okay. Okay. Second tip is to try, if possible, if you have the capabilities in whatever you're using to record at 24-bit or above. The way that digital sound works is that rather than nice smooth waves, everything is essentially stepped. The higher the bits, the less obvious the steps, and the more dynamic range that you're afforded. The most important thing with quiet sources is that you have the dynamic range, so that on the one hand, if things do suddenly get loud with, say, something very transient like a tap or a click, you don't create distortion. But on the other hand, if you do need to raise the volume after you've recorded, if you have used 24-bit or above, you have less likelihood of creating distortion by square wave at the bottom of the waveform. The third tip is to make sure that you're managing your gain stages correctly. The temptation might be to turn the volume or the gain on a preamp louder so that you can hear all the little nuances, but the thing to remember is that as you turn the gain up on a preamp, you're introducing distortion, which might not be as pleasant to listen to, and if you are recording in 24 bits or above, you have more leeway to raise the volume after the event, or in fact apply compression to bring the loud and the quiet sounds together a bit more.
What's compression? We've got 4 minutes to explain compression.
Okay. Can I draw a diagram?
Yeah.
Compression is a transform function of gain. Usually the input gain is equal to the output gain. With compression, after a particular threshold of loudness, the amount of increase in loudness becomes less by a particular ratio. So it may be that at minus 15 decibels, rather than going up 1 decibel for every decibel as normal, you only go up half a decibel for each decibel. You can also apply something called limiting, which means that after a particular point, things don't get louder at all. That's essentially a compressor with an infinite ratio of gain reduction. Even with quiet recordings, the room contributes quite a lot, and if you are increasing the input gain so you can maximise the sound of the quiet vents, the room is going to contribute more and more. So I would definitely experiment with different rooms, different environments, and even different positions within a room, because that can make a real difference. So, for example, although it's a loud thing, if I'm recording a drum kit, it may be that the snare drum might sound better in a particular corner of the room because of the different frequencies that are reflecting and being absorbed at that particular place. So which room you use and even where inside the room can really make a difference.